I've been trying to break down fight plans for both of them, like what I would
okay. That's interesting.
It's going to be an interesting fight. I'm very intrigued by it. I think it's actually the most exciting Ryzen fight since probably Ren and Mikuru.
Thank you once again. It's good to see you again.
Yeah, for sure, man. I think it's fun. I had a good time the last time.
Oh, that's cool. Yeah, I have a good time. My English is a little bit like, I don't really talk about MMA or boxing or anything in English ever. So like there's some words like that just exist in Japan but not in English, like 海外の選手, like a foreigner fighter. It's just weird, right?
Yeah. You know, it's actually super refreshing for me too, because I love Japanese MMA and I got, you know, pretty deep into Japanese MMA, obviously. Mm-hmm. And you're the first person that I'm actually able to talk to it about.
Right.
That understands it. I've never spoke to anybody else that speaks English at your proficiency that can also speak deeply about Japanese MMA. I think it's a pretty rare dichotomy, I guess.
Right. I guess if you're not, or if you weren't in it at least once, you wouldn't quite understand it. Is that kind of what it is?
Even when I meet, like, let's say UFC fighters that know about Ryzen, they don't understand Japanese MMA at all. And even like, yeah, there's a lot of people that are pretty high up in MMA that just don't understand Japanese MMA at all.
So it's kind of like MMA, but it's kind of just like a foreign sport in a way. Like, what's the, like, exactly, I mean, it's kind of hard to explain, I guess, but like, what's like the factor that makes it so different? Besides the way they promote it, like, is it that mainly?
I think it's the language barrier. Is just naturally a big one. I think also to like know just history and culture of like how the sport has grown, like pre-Pride and then Pride and then how it was reborn. And do you know the promotion ACA?
ACA. No, I don't.
It's probably one of the toughest promotions in the world out of Russia, but like, there's just so limited access to it. I think it's similar to that. You know?
Right. Is there a possibility that, like, let's say ACA in Russia, it's like the Ryzen of Russia and it's actually massive in the country? Is there a possibility of that? What do you think?
Yeah, well, ACA is massive. You know, obviously Ryzen's massive. I think KSW is another big one. That's like KSW is probably the most known of the three, maybe Ryzen. But, you know, like, for example, I've coached in KSW and it was a very interesting experience. It was a good experience, but different than other promotions. And also I've heard like crazy stories about ACA and the different like players involved with like the funding and everything. So it's just, I think that makes it different too. Plus with Pride, like, have you seen The Smashing Machine?
Is it this documentary on YouTube by any chance?
Yeah. Well, that's the real one. And then they just came out with the movie with The Rock. But yeah, the real one's on YouTube.
Okay. Yeah, I've heard of it. I haven't seen it, though.
If you watch that, that is exactly how Americans view Japanese MMA.
Okay. The Smashing Machines, minasan, mite kudasai.
Yeah, it's very interesting. It's like, anyways, just give that a watch. And I think that'll give a good idea of how the general American looks at Japanese MMA.
And it's just not quite right. It's not like quite accurate, is what you feel?
I think there's probably truth to it, but I don't think that it's totally right. You know, I think like Americans view it as like very exciting and violent, but they also view it as very kind of confusing, like on how matches get made and how the story of fights and like why do certain guys get popular and why don't others, you know? So like that theatrics of it, even though it's real, is confusing to the non-Japanese speaking consumer.
Right. Okay. That's interesting.
But I'll tell you, like, Ryzen, and this is for all the Japanese fans, like, really think about this. I feel like sometimes Japanese fans feel maybe a little bit inferior to the UFC. Ryzen is not inferior. It's its own thing, and Americans love it.
It's a different thing, right?
Yeah, it's a different thing, and I don't know how else to say it, because I really don't know how else to say this, but I just wish that, like, that part of the Japanese market had more confidence and found a way to bring it to the West, because the West would love it.
Right. So like having a event in the States, because I feel like what the main hurdle is the time. Like even if Ryzen was like a popular attraction, if they host events in Japan, the time that to watch it live, like if you're going to watch it live on pay-per-view or something, in the States, it just goes off. Like, so there's a boxer called Naoya Inoue who's very popular. He's worldwide. He's known. He's one of the best ever. But the time he fights at is just like midnight or like early morning in the States, that if you're not a hard fan, you're not going to watch that live.
But like, for example, if the UFC ever came, like when the UFC came to Japan before, they fought at like 7 in the morning in Japan.
Yeah.
Because they have to cater to the Western audience. And I'm not saying they should, the Ryzen needs to do that, but whatever the solution is, I don't know what it would be. It's almost like take the step, have the confidence. Americans love Ryzen. It just needs a little bit more exposure, and I don't know how, but it's going to be great.
Right. That's interesting. Okay.
You know, like Patchy, for example, signing, that's a step.
Yeah, I think
for sure it's a step.
I think Sakagiwara was mentioning something like he wants to bring more how do you say, not kaigai no senshu, so like non-Japanese fighters over to Ryzen. So yeah, and Patchy, I think he fought once a long time ago, I think 2019 or something around there, and he kind of just ran through Motoya, but he's kind of signed with the UFC. It seems like they cut him, and now he's possibly signed with the Ryzen for a couple of fights, maybe, but he's making a comeback. But he's quite a big name, right? Like people in the States, they all know about Patchy Mix, so him fighting in Ryzen's, I mean, it's great publicity for Ryzen.
Yeah, I think he became really known when he signed to the UFC and all the hype that was behind him. I think like if you weren't an MMA fan, maybe not as known as the Japanese know him. Like the Japanese people know him because he fought in Ryzen when they did the Bellator versus Ryzen event.
Yeah, I think he also beat Kyoji in a Bellator event over in the States.
Yep, that's right. That's right. So I think like the Japanese fans really knew and respected his talent. Again, I don't know how big he was because like I think at the time when he signed to the UFC, I think he had 35,000 followers on Instagram.
Okay.
It's not that many, you know? So I don't know. I don't know how big he was nationwide, but once he got to the UFC and like everyone was aware that he was Bellator champ, he's definitely well known in the MMA community as being very, very strong.
Sorry, you just cut off for the last second. So he's known in the MMA community as a very strong fighter.
Yeah, for sure.
Okay. Yeah, he mentioned you once in the press conference, so that's kind of what gave me the idea to have you on and talk about it.
Yeah, I didn't really understand what he said, to be honest. You might have to fill me in. Like,
okay. So
I didn't
like,
really look on X too much.
I think what the question was, he was asked about what he thinks about his opponent, Kyoma, and he's like, yeah, he's a good fighter, but I kind of know his coach. I know Billy, and he's his like wrestling coach Billy, and Billy comes to me for advice about grappling, and we talk about that stuff kind of thing. So he's like, yeah, I'm at this level in grappling, you know, is kind of I think the nuance that he wanted to like say.
Okay.
So like, oh, you guys kind of met and kind of talked to each other. You guys have a connection was kind of like what I just thought.
Yeah. So Patchy and I are friends. Like I've been friends with Patchy for a long time before I ever came out to Japan. He's part of a good group of guys with Jake Shields and a lot of good guys. A lot of good guys that he trains with. I've known him for quite some time. And I was trying to think like what he meant by that. That's what I thought he said. Okay. And all I could think about because we don't train together. All I could think about was when Kai and Hiroya came to America in like March of 2024, before Kai signed to the UFC. We trained with his team a couple times and they sparred with Patchy. After sparring, Patchy was going over some details with Kai and Hiroya on a like maybe guillotine escape or finishing the guillotine. I don't remember exactly. Right. And that's the only thing that I can recall.
Okay. Yeah, because I kind of got the idea that you guys kind of meet each other a lot over there and like you kind of discuss grappling techniques and stuff like that. But it's kind of like just this one-time thing. Okay.
I think it's more so like we're very friendly. It's always like, hey, what's going on? How you doing? Like, let's get some training in. And then we never get training.
Okay.
So I hate to be like the big like Debbie Downer, I guess, but like there's not as much excitement behind that comment as I think it got.
Right. Oh, well, that's interesting too. It's interesting.
He's a friend of mine, and you know I wish him the best. Like he's a very good guy, and I have nothing but good things to say about Patchy.
I wanted to ask you about his skills as a grappler. I mean, we all know he's very good, but like if you go into the details, I'm sure you can break it down much better than that. I'm sure. So like, what makes Patchy Mix a good grappler or a good fighter? ちょっと話変わるんですけど、この部分を飛ばさないで最後まで見てください。MyMoods 知ってますか？ポッド系ベープです。まあ、具体的に言うと、気分を変えるアイテムをコンセプトとして、まあ、この、ポッド系って言うと、これを、ポッドでしょ？はい。これを刺して、このまま吸える。オンとオフない。
ボタン操作なしで。
使いやすい。
はい。
でこうたくさんポッドこう並んでるんですけど、ただこれをじゃあ俺は今柚子吸いたい。柚子
めっちゃ楽じゃん。
からの、僕はやっぱレモンコークがいいやって。だからその気分を変えるっていうか、
はい
甘いものがいいとか、
はい
いやすっきりするこのクールミント系がいいとか、
うんうん
それ気分によって変わるじゃん、だからこれをちょっと使ってその気分を変えられるっていう。
めちゃくちゃいいですね。
結構僕使ってます。
はい
普通に素晴らしいです。で最近新しい味リリースして僕が結構好きなのはこちらですよ、レモンコーク。
はい。
であとこのマンゴーにハマってた。
マンゴーめちゃくちゃ美味しいですよこれ。はい。
こっちだね、ごめんなさい。
Yes。
マンゴー、レモンコーク。両方ともめちゃくちゃ美味しい。一つの箱にポッド2つ入るんですよね。それをそのタバコに比べると、およそ20箱分相当だから。
そうなんだ。
そうだからタバコを減らしたい方、
はい
結構僕みたいにタバコ減らしたい方なんですけど、おすすめなんですよ。たまにただパフしたいものが
ね、本当にそう
欲
ね。
で味は美味しいし、ノンニコチンあるし、そのニコチンもあるのかなと思うんだよね。だからその選べられるんだよ、そのいろんな味とか、
はい
種類とか。だから
はい
めちゃくちゃおすすめします。で、FamilytimeFT と格闘キャストの視聴者さんたちのために MyMoods さんが半額クーポンコードを発行しました。FT30 です、皆さん。FT30 使ってください。
FT30
何よりも吸ってその煙がたくさん出るじゃん。なんか、
はい
なんていうの、吸い心地っていうの、なんか
爆煙が楽しい。
いやなんかたくさんなんか吸って全然煙がなんか何も出ないと、
そうそうそうそう
何も吸ってないっていう感覚なんですけど、そういう部分でその満足感があるんだよ。なんかタバコみたいな満足感があるっていうのがいいから、興味ある方は概要欄チェックしてください。クーポンコードも下に貼ってるのでお願いします。
よろしくお願いします。
So like what makes Patchy Mix a good grappler or a good fighter?
Yeah, I mean, he's really, really good. And I don't think that his last two fights represent really his skill set. First off, he fought Mario Batista, who I've mentioned before in your show, I think is like one of the underrated, strongest fighters in the division. Mario's really good. So I think that's a very tough first fight for Patchy. And then the second fight was, I think, a bit of a surprise because it was an unknown fighter from KSW.
Yes.
But I think a 2-division KSW champion. Like, he was a tough kid as well. And that guy will fight Muin, who beat Rinya Nakamura.
Oh, okay.
Muin.
Yeah.
So that's an interesting fight to see. Like, how good is he really? Right.
Okay.
But yeah, anyways, going back to Patchy, he's very strong. He comes from a very strong wrestling background. He trains, I believe, or used to train under Jake Shields. And he might still train under Jake. So great jiu-jitsu. Yeah, he's really talented. I've watched him train. He's come to some of our training sessions when I used to coach at a different gym, and I've seen him do some amazing things. So
You know, he fought at bantamweight and he's going up to featherweight for this one. Do you think that's going to be like a positive change for him? Because it looks like, I mean, he's massive. His frame is big, right?
yeah, he's taller than me actually, and I'm 182 centimeters. So he's taller than me, I think, or maybe the same height as me. He's big, but he's skinny.
Yeah.
You know, I don't know. I think it's one of those things that we spoke about like in the last talk as well. Like it's where does the fighter feel confident? And I think if there's any big promotion to go up in a weight class too, it would be Ryzen. Like, Yoma's big too, but I don't think he's losing a lot of weight to get to featherweight. You know, or at least, I mean, I'm sure he's grown since I was in Japan, but at the time when I was there, he was a small featherweight.
Right.
But a big bantamweight. He was like right in the middle. You know?
It's going to take time for him to like fully adjust to featherweight, for Kyoma at least.
Yeah, you know, and also just like getting your man strength. Like he's super talented, but like, I mean, as you can probably remember when you were 19 or 20 versus like 27, 28.
Yeah.
You're a lot stronger at a little older age, physically.
Yes.
But his technique is certainly outstanding.
It'll be interesting. I don't think Kyoma's ever fought anyone like that's actually taller and longer than him. So this would be like the first time in Patchy Mix.
Yeah. I've been trying to break down fight plans for both of them, like what I would think.
Okay. That's interesting.
It's going to be an interesting fight. I'm very intrigued by it. I think it's actually the most exciting Ryzen fight since probably Ren and Mikuru.
Yeah, that was big.
Like, this one really shocked me.
Yeah.
I was very, very surprised.
I think everyone was surprised because it kind of came out of the blue. I mean, to break it down simply, the grappling aspect, Patchy Mix has a massive advantage, but the striking, I mean, it seems like Kyoma has a massive advantage in that aspect. So it's like Kyoma wants to strike, Patchy Mix wants to somehow take him down and grapple with him if you just like make it black and white?
Well, I think like it's going to come down to an interesting dynamic. Personally, just from watching both of their fights, I think Kyoma naturally, he has like a pressure boxing style. He stands a little bit tall and he's very aggressive moving forward with his boxing. Pachi, on the other hand, also has a very upright style. And at least his last fight seemed to be more counter striking based, a little bit more. And I think the difference will be if Kyoma's very aggressive, it might make the takedown easier for Pachi if Kyoma's moving forward. And if Pachi's moving forward, it might make that counter boxing very strong for Kyoma.
Yes.
On the feet, it'll be interesting to see what their tactics are. And is Kyoma going to go try to put on a show, or is Kyoma going to go try to win? If that makes sense.
Yeah.
Like, what's his mindset? Is like go to knock him out and make this really go for it, or be very risky, I guess, or is it, hey, I just want to get the win?
Right. If he was to just get the win, what would be the strategy though? Like, isn't his best bet kind of just to like put him out?
Well, I think yes, maybe. Pachi's very good on the back. Pachi's very good at grappling, and he can scramble. He's dangerous from all positions grappling. But like, we haven't really seen a lot of takedown attempts. And Kyoma's pretty good at scrambling, and he has pretty good footwork too. I don't know. I'd have to really break it down, so this might be too early to give an assessment. But one of the things that I would say is like, if he could be very smart in the first 2 rounds, score points by attacking, and then if he has to, really go for it in the third. Kind of if he could wear Pachi down with, calf kicks or slow him down with his boxing, maybe the third round would be when he should really go for it. I would think, on the other hand, Pachi's going to come to try to finish the fight fast. I would think.
Is there like a possibility that Pachi Mix is kind of like not underestimating it, but like if you're fighting in the UFC or like the top guys in Bellator, and then you kind of look at Ryzen, like the level of competition is like a little bit lower, or like I would understand it if Pachi Mix kind of looked at it that way. So like, how is his motivation coming to Ryzen? I guess is the question I'm trying to ask.
I haven't spoken to him like that much, to be honest, but he seems to be motivated, and I would assume he must be very motivated, coming off what happened in the UFC, and then he was the Bellator champion and wanting to come and really kind of regain momentum. I think he truly believes in himself, and I think he should believe in himself. He's very strong. I think one thing that's kind of interesting is like, because it's difficult for like Westerners to search a lot of Japanese fighters' names and history, like you have no idea what the level of competition is in Japan as a Westerner. Like, how good is their opponents? Like, you see these amazing highlight reels, and it's like, well, how good was the opponent that they fought?
Right.
Like you and I know that Kyoma's very strong because we know they're his opponents, but I don't know if that goes for everybody that's maybe looking up Kyoma now.
Right.
So I don't know. I mean, I would guess Pachi's taking it very seriously. And I mean, we both know Kyoma's very strong, and I know, like, for example, the UFC knows that Kyoma's very strong. He's the top prospect in the world, I believe, at featherweight. It was like under 20 or something like that.
Under 20. He's still 19, which is pretty crazy when you think about it.
Yeah.
But like, if you just look at like just looking at the records, let's say, like, because Mix kind of just ran through Motoya, and he kind of finished him in like a couple under 2 minutes, I believe. It was a couple, like, it was pretty fast. And then Motoya was able to kind of beat Kyoma with in the grappling aspect. That's how he stole the victory. So like, just looking at it like that, and it hasn't been that much time since Kyoma fought Motoya, right? Like a year or so, maybe, I think.
Yeah, I think it was about a year ago. I mean, I did corner him for that fight. I was still in Japan. So what month are we in now? February. It would have been, a year ago.
A year or so. And then he's kind of just fought, I think, mainly strikers up to that point. So like, how much has his grappling actually improved to like face a guy like Pachi Mix?
It's hard to say, but I believe they have Takura and Kanehara, and they're both jiu-jitsu guys. So I guess we'll see.
Yeah.
I get like, that's just all that we can say. But I will say this, like, if you look at just Kyoma's record, if you look at Pachi's record, I think if you were to look statistically at it, the no-brainer is Pachi's going to win.
Right.
But Kyoma's young. He's getting better every single fight, and I think it's very hard to measure young fighters because they have something to prove.
Right.
And so I think that's what makes the fight so exciting, is like there is this part, I think, in all of us that know Kyoma that's like, oh, he might be able to do it.
Right. So you would, like, if there were to have all done it, Kyoma would be the underdog, but like he can pull it off. It's kind of like the gist of it.
Yeah. I think like, Kyoma's for sure the underdog, but I believe in Kyoma. You know, I think like he could step up. He's stepped up every time that he's fought, and I think, you know, losing to Motoya was a good thing for him.
Yeah.
And we'll see how he bounces back, you know.
Yeah, I like Kyoma, so I hope he can pull this one off. That'd be a massive step in his career, like a guy like Pachi Mix.
Oh, undeniable. Like, I mean, that would be, well, as we spoke in the last time we talked, like, he's getting there. Now, I thought, like, maybe he could get maybe a not as strong grappler first, you know?
Yeah.
But this is a great test.
Yeah.
So.
It's an interesting match because if, let's say, Pachi can pull it off, or, you know, he shows a dominant victory, we'll be talking about Pachi versus Chef. That'll be interesting as well.
Both exciting, right? Both are super exciting, and I think it's a win-win for Kyoma. If he loses, it's still a step in the right direction. He's taking a big chance, and he's young, so he'll keep getting better. If he wins, he obviously shocks the world, and it just really shows how dominant he is. And then for Pachi, if he wins, I think everybody wants to see him versus the champ.
It would be interesting. That's probably what they would do.
I mean, that's what I would want to see.
Do a lot of fighters over there want to fight in Ryzen? I was just wondering.
Yeah, you know, I have a bunch of fighters. I mean, I got a big team of guys that a lot of them want to fight in Ryzen.
Oh.
And, you know, one thing I would say is the trend seems to be Ryzen is signing guys that are former UFC fighters. And maybe that's good. I don't know what the thought process is behind it, but there's a lot of young and upcoming stars that want to fight in Ryzen too.
Right.
Like, I guess my question for you is, like, do you think that by having guys that are maybe 0-2 or are losing record in the UFC, like another good example is like Vince Morales, and then they come over and they win in like a dominant fashion, is that good or bad for Ryzen?
Well, ideally they would want to bring them over and the Ryzen fighter beats them. That would be obviously the ideal situation that they are probably looking for. Let's say they bring a former UFC fighter and he beats a Ryzen fighter. I guess if the fans kind of like, oh, this guy's awesome or something like that, they like his character or they like his fighting style or something, then I guess it's a great thing because they could just call him over again. But I think usually they would call them over because like a guy like Pachi Mix, just his name is kind of big enough, I feel like, for Ryzen fans to kind of like pay attention. And if he fights a guy like Kyoma, it's definitely interesting. But if you call over like a young guy that's just super strong and we match him up with Kyoma, let's say, it's not quite as dramatic, I guess.
Yeah, for sure. I get that. So you have to get the context of like who they are and what they've done. And I guess like the guys that are winning in the UFC stay in the UFC or they retire in the UFC.
Yeah.
Right. So it's kind of a weird dynamic.
Like if we get a young guy, we'll have to build his, not we, but Ryzen would have to build him up within Ryzen. And it kind of takes time. And then, I mean, if you just look at the past, a guy like Manita Cape or something like that, they get the stardom and then they just go to the UFC.
Right.
Which is kind of like, they kind of left us. It's kind of just a minus in that way. But the old guys, they come to Ryzen and they won't go anywhere if they can get they get paid well, they get the popularity, you know, they'll probably retire at Ryzen.
For sure. And I think that makes sense. And I hope Pachi, no matter what the outcome, has a couple fights with Ryzen. I think it'd be cool to see him versus a couple different opponents.
For sure.
Instead of just like a one and done, you know, like Vince, we didn't get to see him fight for a title or anybody after Motoya, but it would have been cool to see that, you know.
For sure. I don't know if you watched the press conference with Pachi and Kyoma. Both of them, obviously, they're asked about what they think about their opponent and stuff. And so Kyoma was asked, and Kyoma was like, you know, says all the stuff about Pachi, like he's a good grappler or whatever. But then, like, at the end, he's like, well, I just want to make sure that the check is, like, they make sure he's not doping. I don't know if you heard about this, but, like, I thought it was kind of, like, out of the blue. Because I don't think Pachi has a record of doping. I think he was not caught, but I think he was flagged for marijuana, weed once. But it's not really a performance-enhancing drug. So for me and for everyone, it's kind of like out of the blue. I didn't want to ask you about like Pachi Mix if he's doping or not, but like since you've been in like UFC and Ryzen and stuff, how strict are the protocols in like Bellator or I bet there's no Bellator anymore, but like the organizations in America and Ryzen? Like, is there like a big difference there?
Well, I think, you know, the UFC is the gold standard of testing. Like they have the best, strictest testing possible. I mean, I think Kai even goes and talks about how strict the testing has been and times where he's been tested. Like, for example, I was wrestling with Cody Garbrandt the other day, and we get stopped during the middle of our practice because drug testing's there.
Oof.
So it's totally random and like very controlled. So I would say UFC fighters probably aren't doping.
Right.
I don't think that they are. If they are, a lot of them get caught. Like you can. There's a account on Instagram or on X that you can actually follow that will tell you when everybody gets caught and stuff. So there's a couple that got popped, I think, recently. Kamaru Usman's brother.
Right. I heard
popped.
of this.
Yeah. So like, I think that UFC is pretty strict. I can't speak on other, like on Ryzen, how strict they are. I know that they do test, but I think we all know from different documentaries and whatnot that like not all tests really work. So I don't know. It's kind of a tricky topic. I don't want to offend any organization. Like things that I'm going to say. I think yes, there are athletes that dope in maybe all organizations, and me being familiar with the UFC, I know that they're the strictest.
It's not really possible for any other organization to do it the way the UFC does, like random doping checks on all athletes. Like, how many athletes are there in the UFC? How many fighters do they have?
Yeah, they have a big roster,
right?
Like 600, I think.
Yeah,
But every fighter gets tested when they fight.
Okay.
And then I think like fighters get tested like on average like 3 or 4 times a year, I think, randomly.
Right.
So,
that's still quite a bit of work.
But, my question is like, okay, so if say I'm a fighter and I live in Las Vegas, well, it's very easy to send someone to come drug test me because I live in a metropolitan international city. But what if I live like in the favelas of Brazil, or if I live in like the mountains of Dagestan? Like, how are they going to send somebody to them?
I think a couple of UFC fighters were talking about this. Like McGregor was talking about that with Aldo, like in Brazil. Like it's just going there is a pain, and like they're not going to send someone from the States to go there, right? They're going to get someone in Brazil to go test Aldo, and like, can you trust that? It's a controversial topic, but Ryzen, they do like the on the day testing. It's better than nothing.
For sure.
And I think what gets the fans is like they do the testing, but they don't share the results with everyone. So like if someone did get caught doping, no one would know besides Ryzen, and maybe they'll let the fighters know. I'm not sure about that. So that's an interesting system. And like for fans, like when they hear that, they kind of like get triggered a little bit. Well, if you take the test, if you caught them, we should know. That's kind of like what a normal fan would think, I believe. But then I was thinking about it deeply, and then like, so why should the fans actually be noticed? Like, what's the merit besides like punishing the athlete even more? There's really no merit to letting the fans know. Obviously, I would think you would have to let the opponent know, like their future opponent, like this guy was caught once. Like it would make sense to let the. I think that's fair.
Well, I think what is this due process? Is this the legal system that everyone should be put on trial and their information be out there? That's, if that's what they want, right? But when you look at what is the king to any promotion? Any promotion. It's like the most important thing to any promotion. It's data. Data is the most important thing because you can manipulate data. And so if, for example, I don't know if this is what Ryzen does. I have no idea. But like, if you have a fighter that tests positive for steroids and he's a fan favorite fighter that everybody thinks is a good guy that would never do it. Certainly they don't want to tell the world that because it's going to lower their sales probably.
To ruin his image.
But if it's a bad guy, maybe they want to tell the world that, hey, this fighter popped for steroids because now they made a villain and everyone wants to see the good guy beat the villain.
Right.
And so I think we can think of some allegations that have come up in the recent past that created a good story about this.
Yeah.